Hello everyone and welcome to the 9th installment of Yid Talks. Thank you guys for watching. And before we get started today on today's topic of measure for measure, I wanted to briefly discuss a certain thing that happened over the past few days, which according to Rebbeim that I've spoken to, this is a good siman, it's a good sign when something like this occurs. So when we discussed last time that we talked about how Hashem watches and hears and records in a book everything that we do and how that relates to the modern world, which came from the second chapter, the first mission of Pirkei Avos. That came up in my learning of this week in Mesilas Yesharim, which is a sefer that I would like to speak about more another time as well, because it's something that is very dear to me. But in this week, I was reading in Perek Kaf Hey, chapter 25. It talks about the way of acquiring yiras hachet, the way of acquiring fear of sin, and it brings the second chapter, first mission of Pirkei Avos, and explaining how one acquires this trait. And of course, it's at the very end of the book, as you can tell, and it's not something that is necessarily practical at this point in my life, but a practice of mine, which I want to discuss in a moment, is getting through this book one page at a time, each and every night, and I've been doing this for the past about 8 months or so. So I'm almost done with the sefer, thank God, and I plan on going through it once again. But here brings up the second chapter, first Mishnah, and it says that this awareness actually leads us to yiras hachet, leads us to fear of sin, since God embraces everything. He has hashkacha over everything. He has control and direction over everything. He sees everything. He hears everything. And certainly all of one's actions are recorded in a book, either for good or for bad. And I just wanted to share that as just as a moment of encouragement that I had this week, learning that I've done in one place here, and it's being used as a source in another part of my learning here. And again, that's something that is known as a good sign, as you know, that we're doing the right thing. When something like this happens, when the same source comes in two different places in one's life, and that pushes me forward. So I wanted to share something that's encouraging. And before I get to today's topic, I wanted to just quickly discuss how I am learning this nightly, and a goal for this time of year, for Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and a Kabbalah, something that I wish to take on, and of course something that's small enough that we can chew, which is important, so that can actually make positive change in our lives, which again can be a whole nother topic of discussion. But just for now, I just wanted to share how I've been learning this a few minutes a night. Didn't really have a time limit associated with it, but I think one small change that I'm going to make for the upcoming year is to learn Mesilas Yesharim for at least 5 minutes a night. Bli neder, God willing, I can make that happen, and I would love to share how that goes. And it's making those little changes that really can make a real change in one's life. The Karliner Rav in Eretz Yisrael, he was asked, after learning an 8-hour session, he was seen by one of his Hamidim that he didn't look up from his learning for 8 hours straight. And his Talmud asked him, how do you do such a thing? How do you sit there and just focus for that long? And we don't have to even see this answer in Torah learning, in just any type of focus in life. And we all know that as time goes on, focus becomes less. The information age, like mentioned during last talk, it's pretty heavy. There's just so much out there. There's so much to pay attention to that it feels like our time gets squeeze more and more as the days go by. So to see that type of focus for 8 hours, the Talmud wanted to know, how is this possible, Rav? How is this possible? And the Rav answered in an insightful manner by saying that he said that I made a Kabbalah, I made a decision in my life when I was younger that I was going to learn for 5 minutes straight with no distractions. And he said after a couple months of getting used to that, I raised it to 6 minutes. And then I raised it to 10. And once I was able to do that, I raised it to 15. And he said, here I am today, being able to focus for 8 hours straight. Now that's something, that's a level beyond most people's grasp. But I think it can serve as an inspiration for all of us to see that the little effort that we put in after a long amount of time, it can really show a significant difference in our lives for the better. So I just wanted to share that thought because I thought it was very beautiful. And for today's topic, measure for measure, I'm actually going back to the second chapter, first Mishnah of Pirkei Avos, in a different interpretation. This time by the Maggid of Medrash, and one of the things that I've always loved about Torah since becoming religious is the depth of Torah, that you can take any pasuk, any sentence in all of Torah, and you can have so many different commentaries that take the pasuk from so many different angles that can teach you so many important things about life, that you really can learn almost an entirety of wisdom from just one sentence of Torah. And I always found that fascinating. And we talked about last week how this Mishnah discussed how God is always watching over us. And I explained how it necessarily doesn't have to be seen in a fearful type of way, but we can see it as a way of showing how much he cares about us and how much he loves us and how much he wants to be a part of our lives, and how much it is the responsibility of us day by day getting better at that trait of recognizing that the creator and sustainer of this world cares about the actions that we do, and that should hopefully motivate us to do good in this world. So the Maggid of Medrash brings this Mishnah, and I'm going to bring just the last part of it, like I did last talk. So da ma lamala mimcha. Know that everything is from above. But now he's saying lamala mimcha. Know that everything above is mimcha, from you, is of you. What does he mean by this? We're going to say ayin roeh, an eye that sees. The way that the Maggid of Medrash understands this is an eye that sees others in a positive way or a negative way. Hashem will see that person in a positive or negative way. I have an oizen shamas, an ear that hears. That if a person hears and he listens to gossip and he listens to things that aren't so good for his neshama, isn't so good for his soul, then also Hashem may listen to things about you in a negative way, and hear possibly gossip about you in a negative way. And everything is written in a book. And the Maggid Medrash explains this to say that if you tend towards always remembering what someone did to you in a negative way, Hashem is going to remember you in a negative way. He's going to remember and record your negative actions and remind you of that in the next world. And I started by saying the positive and the negative, but I believe the Maggid Medrash just brings the negative aspect of this, but I believe you can of course infer the positive as well, meaning everything we do in this life is really going to be a reflection of how God views us in the next world. And of course this could be a scary thought, but instead of thinking it in that negative term, we could see it in a really positive way. And this is what measure for measure really is. We can understand that the way that we are in this world is going to be a reflection for how we're treated in the next world. And that should be a great push for us to treat everyone kindly, to always think in a positive fashion, and try to remember that this world really is a perfect balance. It's a perfect justice. The truth being that you get in life exactly that which you put into it, which instead of seeing that again in a negative way of being like, oh my gosh, now how am I gonna? I treat someone badly, then I get treated badly. Well, if we think of it in a perfect justice type of way, that's perfectly reasonable. For a world that's built on perfect justice, which is the way that God builds this world, and that's perfect fairness, and that's the way that we should expect the world to work. And I think that concept that we get in life that which we put into it is just such a powerful method to help us strive for good. If we can think in the way of that this world is just a preparation for the next world, and Chazal, the Rabbanon, throughout the ages, the wise men throughout the ages spoke about this numerously in many different ways. It's brought up in the Mesilas Yesharim quite often, that this world is really just a preparation for what the next world brings. And I just wanted to bring this up tonight as a way to help us, especially during this time of Elul and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and beyond into the new year that's coming before us as we speak, to help us recognize that it's for our own good that we try to work on ourselves and try to be better people. It's hard work. It takes time. It takes so much effort. Sometimes we might come to think there'd be a havamina, there'd be the wrong way of thinking about it is, why put in the effort? What is it really doing for me? And I think through this Mishnah, the way that the Maggid Medrash understands it, and the way that we can try to put it within our souls, is that really we have the opportunity to make our lives better, not only in the next world, but actually also in this world too. Because when I say obviously, but it might not be obvious. But when we are able to treat others in a more kind and respectful way, then naturally people are more kind and respectful to us. Our self-confidence can gain from that. Our ability to cooperate and get along with others is something that can't be understated. And I think that it's a powerful lesson, and I'm grateful that I read this drush, that I read this explanation of the Maggid Medrash in one of the weekly Parsha packets of Torah Wellsprings, which is Rav Ali Melech Biederman, who is a very special to me and someone that I'm sure I will bring up more in these talks. And I hope that everyone has some encouragement from this Maggid Medrash and can take something away, and just doing one nice thing to someone else, and not expecting anything in return, recognizing that it's for our good, both in this world and the next. Thank you guys for listening, and have a great day.